Welcome back to the channel. What's happening, y'all? Millwood Nichols. Hey, my content's for educational purposes only. Can't stress enough for you guys to do your own research. Praise my content. Throw any errors and you find in the comments. None of us have been alive long enough to know all that transpired in the past, and none of us can live long enough to know all there is to learn. Hey, man, I had a thought that crossed my mind while I was working, and actually it makes a lot of sense. And I figured, somebody would probably need to hear this. So what I'm about to talk to y'all about is two parts of the ego. Now, again, we all know, well, we should all know, if we don't, that all knowledge does not come from books. Those of us that know about energy, vibration, and frequency, we understand that statement, a lot better. Excuse me. Whew. Whew. Don't you hate that? Tried to swallow it and it went down the wrong pipe. Anyway. Like I was about to say. Two parts of the ego. What I see it as is this. You have the inner mechanics of the ego, and you have the outer representation of the ego. The inner representation is what fuels and gives life to the outer representation of the ego. But in between those two positions, the inner mechanics and the outer representation, something happens depending on the individual, depending on the stage of evolution relevant to the individual. Has a lot of different variables, but again, ego's not all bad. It's just that, my opinion is that a person, it would benefit a person to either balance out or to have already balanced out to the best extent possible at the time their masculine and feminine energy. Okay? Because the masculine is representative of the ego. The feminine, the higher self. So, with that being stated, when the two have not been properly balanced out, it's it's identifiable to someone that has the eye to see. Okay, my fault. Let me gather my thoughts, man, because this is coming from in there. like I said, something happens. Uh, what I gather from what I've said thus far, try to make sense of it to anybody that it doesn't yet make sense to. I would say this. The inner mechanics of the ego is indicative of how one sees self. You know, now, whatever transpires between that perception of self and it manifesting into an outer representation dictates how that is expressed. You know, in my opinion, you know, power is quiet. Real power is quiet. Because people that really have power, you don't see them walking around with a bullhorn, figuratively. Yeah, well, I'm this, I'm that, or nigga, you ain't got this, or that type of thing. you know, and this all kind of like stemmed from a conversation that I was having that was with one of my coworkers that was relevant to the way a lot of us, if not all of us, have one level or another of ancestral what's the best way to define, well, not define, but to convey this? Ancestral baggage. you know, um, I happen to believe that depending on one's level of knowledge about oneself and of oneself, who and what he or she comes from, etc., has a direct effect on one's self-esteem. And we as melanated individuals have a tendency of compensating for things we feel about ourselves in the form of lack, compensating with outer drapings. Some of us like jewelry, some of us like cars. Excuse me. Some of us are, preoccupied with having a lot of money. Some of us are, preoccupied with having, high-end clothing. This is, this is how we tend to compensate for what's the word I'm looking for? The feelings of lack, or the levels of self-esteem that may be or have a lot to be desired. Excuse me, y'all. When I did that, when I got the coughing, that just kind of threw my throat off a little bit. Threw that throat chakra off a little bit, but I'm gonna push through it. Again, I can't think of the terminology that I want to use, But to explain it, excuse me, it's basically dealing with, a person feeling, or having less than the best perception of self based upon, you know, uh, superficial things, based on the kind of society that we live in and how they try to, push this programming in us. Oh, well, if you ain't got this, then you ain't shit, and, that type of thing. And it's natural for us to all fall into it, but, it doesn't always have to mean that those of us that like, you know, nice cars or fancy cars or, high-end name brand clothing or, whatever whatever your individual twist may be. But, you know, it can never hurt to kind of like check yourself, and this is a personal thing I'm relating to you about, because, my thing, I talk about me. I like Benzes. I got my first Benz in 2016 or the end of 15, and now I'm on my third one, But the thought hit me that, do I really need to have a Benz? Did was my ego at play? When I decided to buy the one that I'm currently in right now. Excuse me. What was the deciding factor? Where was my mind at? And what part did my ego play in the decision that I made to buy it? I'm going to say, yeah, my ego was at play. But I realize now, that for whatever reason, and you guys have to figure this part out for yourselves, if your ego has been at play or was at play or is at play, as it relates to the decisions that you make or the way you spend your money or the way you live your life or, whatever, that's the part I'm talking about checking, because, for instance, the car. See, and before I go there, let me say this. I decided to make this video because through my observation and analyzation, I see that society, in the way society is right now, a lot of us, it's like a thing, we got all this spending power, we spend all this money, but we don't accumulate wealth. We don't, because I know personally myself, I've been in situations where as though, had I been mentally where I'm at today, when those situations came my way, I probably wouldn't even have to work a job right now, 9 times out of 10. And it ain't that I have to work a job today, but that's another story, and I'm not going to get into that. However, what I'm saying to you is, I've had opportunities, financially, that, due to a lack of discipline, or not the proper level of discipline, should I say, not being as in control of my masculine energy, i.e. ego, as I may have thought that I was, I made decisions that, weren't, I could have made better decisions, in other words. And, they say that the first step to, what do they say? The first step to recovery is acknowledging that you have a problem. All right, because contrary to popular opinion, I always felt like, the hustler has a stronger addiction than the fiend. Just think about it. Let's look at the type of treatment you get from having certain things. People that have a lot of money, and it's a known thing. In some areas of society, you get preferential treatment. Let's look at those of us that like high-end name brand clothing. You're always looked upon and treated and dealt with in a certain manner, because it's perceived, whether it's actual fact or not, that you are doing well for yourself. And even if you're doing well for yourself, you may be doing better than everybody in your immediate surroundings. But if you don't have the flash, if you're not able to show that in one way, shape, form, fashion, or another, then it's perceived that you don't have. And sometimes that in and of itself can cause some of us to make decisions that are not the best for us, priority wise. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to point out, man, because it came to me while I was here on the job, out here in the rain, chopping it up with one of my, one of the co-workers that's working with me on this specific job. And I felt like it was important to share with y'all, because I know, again, I'm not the only one that goes through the type of shit that I go through. I'm not the only one that thinks on the levels, that I think on, and even if, some of the people watching this video don't think on those types of critical levels, this may be, a conduit to that beginning for whomever, But yeah, man, I just wanted to share that with y'all, because I felt like it was something I had to take a look at within myself. And I'm pretty sure it's somebody out there that can benefit from this message, and can utilize what was laid out in this video for themselves. So with that being stated, man, I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all go. I just wanted to get that off because I didn't want to forget about it. You know how sometimes you'll get an idea or a thought, and if you don't either write it down or deal with it, at ASAP, then you mess around and forget about it, and you're like, I know I meant to do something, or I had an idea about something, and now I can't even remember it. Yeah, so hence the video. Other than that, man, Y'all be good, man, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Out.